responsible to carry on the initiative even after the NGO phase out. Very often, NGO can facilitate an idea, a response, but to carry it on in a wider scale, it requires also the participation of the government or the agencies that could work hand in hand. So that is one of the reasons that we went to an MOU and telling the post office that we will need infrastructure. Creating infrastructure was not the idea behind the whole campaign or behind the entire response. We were trying to use the infrastructure of the post office, which is already existing in different districts. We mapped those districts which already have the post office, where they have the manpower, and then we decided to pilot test it by keeping a coordinator at these post office who would be doing the link between the law enforcement, the postman and postwoman, and the civil society organization. Then we also use awareness building. Every time the postman goes to the villages, he would talk about the issue of human trafficking to the community at different levels. It could be one-to-one, sometime in a community level. He would inform about how vulnerable women and children are becoming to human trafficking. We were using direct post. Direct post is where material are being sent to the mass group, through the postman and the postwoman. Then there was a kind of developed networking to investigate, preventing, rescue, and rehabilitation the prospective victim of human trafficking. So what happened is, when there's a missing case, very often now, the postman or the postwoman bring it to the post office. And through the coordinator in the post office, they would inform the police or the law enforcement. So that there's a kind of a networking that could work. So then it becomes a much more friendlier kind of response. Then the coordinating NGO played the role of giving and providing legal assistance and others. So looking at that chart, it's basically a chart which has a partnership between the law enforcement, the partner NGOs, the village post office, then it has the coordinator and the postman working together. Then it has the community. So there is basically community is responding back through the partner organization and the law enforcement. Now the law enforcement and the partner NGO works together. Then again, we're talking in terms of the village post office through the coordinator is getting the postman to go further to the community. Now in the process, what really takes place? How does the whole process take place? When an information on a missing case, which when we looked at missing case in India today, where a lot of missing children and missing women are also the link to human trafficking, which has never been looked earlier. And they would intimate these cases and they would transmit this information to the coordinator who's placed at the post office. Then the coordinator would take its steps in responding to the law enforcement, and then the civil society organization or the NGO will build the linkages between the enforcement and the NGO, as well as the missing family who's looking for the child or for the young woman. Now the case info center, which is at the headquarters, basically would coordinate any other cases, because there has been a lot of cases from the Northeast who has been trafficked to Southeast Asia, who has been trafficked at to other parts of India. So the case info center is the one that developed the linkages in terms of search or in speeding up the case by working together with the law enforcement. Then the post office network, they ask us, at the time when we find out information, to assist the family, whether the family is in which village. Again, the role of the postman comes into place because he knows every houses, he knows every family in a community. So it becomes much more easy to locate the families. What happened in this entire process? What kind of citizen response is it bringing? It brings about the police, the civil society organization who initiate the process against the person who is involved in trafficking. Then the NGO who assume the responsibility to reintegrate these children who are found. Then the communities wherever possible, they make it more a complete integrated approach. How do they do it? By going to the post office, by informing, by getting the response that they could get help. And then the entire model itself is a model that can work even in the absence of a lot of funds. It's a model where we are using the infrastructure which is already available, the setting which is already available, which is somehow along the line in the form of today's world, we have forgotten even to send letters or to send, we've forgotten the role of the postman and postwoman. But sometime when we relooked at some remote area like the Northeast or even other parts of India, these postmen who are also citizens can make a difference. Thank you.
There is one small question. Yes, when we are talking of this trafficking, if I understand, it has got two components. One component is that going in search of jobs. One component is that because of the poverty, that because of the low opportunities in the remotest area, as was happening in Himachal also, the children at very small age are sent for work. Okay, and the other component, of course, is what you are saying that it can. What I mean is that for all type of other purposes, that is very unfortunate. Only thing is that has any study been carried out in any part of this area? What is the percentage of people who have gone willingly? What is the percentage of persons who have been lured, away from that? And what was the role of the administration of that area when any complaint was lodged? Thank you.
All right.
Just finish Jerry's presentation and then we'll open the questions and answers for that. Thank you. I hope I'm being heard.
Okay, thank you. It's not a very easy thing to talk to a group of hungry stomachs. And now I look at the watch, it's around 1:30, and the subject is not very appetizing, but today we are talking about governance. But let me just restrict my presentation to about 3 or 4 reflections. Reflection number 1, as we were proceeding to find this place, Rajghat, I was reminded about a small article that I read that Rajghat and Delhi, in general terms, is a burial ground. We bring things to be buried here. So it's maybe a very morbid thought that this is also a burial ground for good governance. Listening to the morning speakers when we arrived here, it is a long story, or rather a sad story, of how things are not working in this country. And many people explain in fairly detailed terms how there is no governance at all. I also heard words like corruption, which seems to be a kind of a national character. Now that is the depressing part of the story, and it will be very sad and unfortunate that it just remained at that. We all know the bad story. We know what is not working. We know what is bad governance. We know what is corruption. My reflection number 2 is, I'm coming from a meeting where the theme of the meeting was how to mainstream child rights in governance. How do you put children on the agenda of governance? The connecting point that I'd like to share and put forward is, it seems in Africa, it's traditional, if you want to know what is the situation in the country, the question that is frequently asked there is, how are your children? To check out how the country is faring, the simple question that is asked in a conversation is, how are the children? I think it's an excellent indicator of governance, good or bad. If you want to know if the country is doing well, if the state is doing well, if the district is doing well, and coming at more practical levels, if the neighborhood is doing well, the question to be asked is, how are your children faring there? I think we can give up all other indicators of measuring development, whether it's infant mortality rate, infant morbidity rate, school enrollment rate, HIV AIDS or whatever. Just ask a simple question, how are the children faring? If the children are doing well, the children are growing happily, if the nutrition is being taken care of, the education is of good quality, the health status is good, they can very well be assured your country, your state, your neighborhood is doing well. If you all agree to take the well-being of a child as one single indicator of governance, we have got it all. That's one. And my last 2 points are, the scenario I described, whether it was referring to a specific area like what Asina said about the issue of trafficking of children, the general indicator on children, if the situation of governance is so bad, do we have any solution, any escape? This is a period of Obama, or slogans, or to be very specific, 2 words have become very popular, and thanks to Obama and thanks to the president-elect. And the slogan is, we can. It's very inspiring actually, but I would like to go even slightly before that, before we say we can, before we promote we can, before we canvass we can. I think the more important and the more basic value is come to a commitment that I care. And I say I care, I don't even want to say we. Because it's very easy to be part of a mob and a big slogan say we. And it's very much of a solidarity to say we. But I would like to put the challenge much lower down than that even before you come to we, what about you? That is I. Can we begin at the beginning? As I was telling someone as we were driving to this place, there was a hope that an elected government will protect us. There was a hope that an elected government will govern us. There is a belief that Indian Administrative Service officers, or IAS as they are called, or the bureaucrats as they are popularly known, they choose to serve and they are paid to serve. But I'm sorry to say, and I'm not saying only me, I think many of us have come to a very sad realization that the politicians and the political leadership which is there to lead us, the bureaucrats who are there to administer service, have both failed us. Have both failed us miserably. And the fingers might not be pointed only to them. The fingers are pointing inwardly to us. We are the ones who have elected them. We are the ones, in many ways, tolerate them. So where should the change begin? I think the change has to begin with me. And this is not to romanticize or to create an unreal positive light in darkness, but that's where the logic is. that you begin with yourself. That is why even the symbolic gesture of saying sign on a campaign has to be